During breakfast, my innocent 4-year-old daughter accidentally sat at my niece's table and started eating. My sister saw and she threw the hot pan onto her face, which left her unconscious. As I heard a loud bang, I rushed to check and confronted her, saying, "What kind of monster?" Before I could finish, my mother said, "Stop shouting, take her somewhere, she's disturbing everyone's mood." Dad added, "Some children just ruin peaceful mornings." I took my daughter to the hospital and they all showed up. That's when my sister disconnected her hospital alarm. As I was coming back with the doctor, she smirkingly left. When the doctor found her flatlined, Uncle added, "Some kids just aren't meant to make it." 20 minutes later, I made sure they paid. My name is Rachel Patterson, and I never thought I'd be writing this. My hands still shake when I think about what happened 6 months ago. This isn't one of those stories where the villain gets a redemption arc or where family reconciles at the end. This is about justice, cold and absolute, for my daughter Emma. We were staying at my parents' house in suburban Michigan for what was supposed to be a relaxing long weekend. My sister Vanessa had driven up from Ohio with her daughter Lily, who was 6. My brother Marcus came with his wife Jennifer. My uncle Howard, Dad's older brother, had flown in from Arizona. It was meant to be a family reunion, something we hadn't done in 3 years. Emma was always such a gentle child. She had these enormous brown eyes and strawberry blonde hair that curled at the ends. Every morning she'd wake up singing some made-up song about butterflies or clouds. That Saturday morning was no different. I heard her little footsteps padding down the hallway around 7:30, humming her newest melody about pancakes. I was in the upstairs bathroom getting ready when I heard the metallic crash echo through the house. The sound was so violent, so wrong, that my stomach dropped before my brain could even process what might have caused it. I ran toward the stairs, my wet hair dripping down my back. The scene in the dining room will haunt me until my last breath. Emma was crumpled on the floor, unconscious, with angry red burns already blistering across the left side of her face and neck. A cast-iron skillet lay beside her, scrambled eggs splattered across the hardwood. Vanessa stood 3 feet away, her face twisted into something I didn't recognize. "What kind of monster?" I started screaming, dropping to my knees beside Emma. My mother appeared in the doorway, still in her bathrobe. "Rachel, stop shouting. Take her somewhere, she's disturbing everyone's mood." I stared at her in disbelief. My daughter was unconscious with second-degree burns and my mother was worried about the mood? Dad walked in from the kitchen with his coffee mug. "Some children just ruin peaceful mornings." He shook his head like Emma had merely spilled juice instead of being assaulted by her own aunt. "She sat in Lily's chair," Vanessa said flatly, crossing her arms. "She started eating Lily's breakfast. I made that specially for my daughter." The casualness in her voice sent ice through my veins. I gathered Emma into my arms, her small body limp and terrifyingly still. "I'm taking her to the hospital. Someone needs to call the police." "Don't be dramatic," my mother snapped. Vanessa was just startled. You know how protective mothers can be. I didn't wait to hear more. I grabbed my keys and phone from the entry table and carried Emma to my car. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely buckle her into her car seat. She was breathing, but she hadn't opened her eyes. The burns looked even worse in the morning sunlight. The drive to Mercy General took 11 minutes. I ran every yellow light and may have rolled through a stop sign. I kept talking to her the whole way, begging her to wake up, promising her everything would be okay even though I had no idea if it would be. The ER staff took her immediately. A nurse named Patricia helped me with the intake forms while 2 doctors examined Emma. They transferred her to the pediatric burn unit within 30 minutes. Dr. Sarah Chen, the attending physician, explained that Emma had sustained second and third-degree burns covering approximately 12% of her body, concentrated on her face, neck, and left shoulder where the pan had made contact. "We're going to keep her sedated for now," Dr. Chen said gently. "The pain would be unbearable otherwise. We need to monitor for infection and assess whether she'll need skin grafts." I sat in the chair beside Emma's hospital bed, holding her tiny hand. They'd wrapped most of her head and shoulder in specialized burn dressings. And 4 dripped clear fluids into her arm. Monitors beeped steadily, tracking her heart rate and oxygen levels. My phone had been buzzing nonstop. I finally looked at it around 11. 17 missed calls from my mother. 12 texts from Vanessa saying I was overreacting. 3 voicemails from Dad telling me to come back to the house so we could discuss this rationally. I blocked all their numbers. Around 2 in the afternoon, I heard voices in the hallway. My entire family had shown up. I stood and walked to the doorway, blocking their entrance. "You need to leave," I said quietly. "Rachel, don't be ridiculous," my mother said, trying to push past me. "We came to see Emma. The woman who burned her is standing right behind you. You defended her. None of you are coming near my daughter." Vanessa stepped forward. "It was an accident. I got scared when I saw someone at Lily's place. I reacted." "You threw a cast-iron skillet full of hot food at a 4-year-old child because she sat in the wrong chair. She shouldn't have been there," Vanessa said, her jaw tight. I specifically set that spot for Lily. A nurse appeared and asked them to keep their voices down. I told her these people had assaulted my daughter and I didn't want them anywhere near her room. She nodded seriously and said she'd update the visitor restrictions immediately and notify security. They dispersed, but I saw them in the hospital cafeteria later. Sitting together, eating sandwiches, talking like nothing had happened. Marcus caught my eye and shrugged as if to say, "What can you do?" The first 2 days blurred together. Hospital security had flagged my family members in their system, but I remained vigilant. A social worker named Karen Mendez visited on Sunday afternoon. She explained that the hospital had already filed a report with Child Protective Services and the police, as they're mandated to do for any suspected child abuse. Detective Bryce Harris will be coming by tomorrow to take your statement, Karen said gently. CPS will also need to interview you and assess Emma's home environment, though that's standard procedure. Given the circumstances, I don't anticipate any issues there. Emma developed a fever that evening, spiking to 103.4 degrees. The doctor started her on antibiotics for a possible infection. I didn't sleep, didn't eat much, just sat beside her bed watching the monitors. Monday morning, Detective Harris arrived as promised. She was a woman in her mid-40s with kind eyes and a no-nonsense demeanor. She took detailed notes while I walked her through everything: the breakfast incident, my family's reactions, their comments, their behavior at the hospital. I've already reviewed the hospital's report and spoken with Dr. Chen, she said. We're treating this as aggravated assault. The burns alone constitute a serious felony. I'll need to interview your family members as well. They'll lie, I said flatly. Most perpetrators do. But we have medical evidence, hospital staff witnesses, and your testimony. That's usually enough. She gave me her card and told me to call if anything else happened. Tuesday morning, Emma finally woke up. She was confused and in pain despite the medication. She asked for water and then asked why everything hurt. I had to explain what happened in the simplest terms I could manage. She started crying, which made the burn stretch and hurt more, which made her cry harder. Dr. Chen came by during afternoon rounds and said Emma was showing signs of improvement. The infection appeared to be responding to treatment. They'd need to keep her at least another week for observation and to begin the first stages of wound care. I went to the hospital cafeteria to grab coffee and a sandwich around 4 o'clock. I'd been surviving on vending machine food and whatever the nurses could spare. I was gone maybe 20 minutes total. I came back to find 2 nurses rushing into Emma's room. One was checking the monitors while the other examined Emma's 4-line. I pushed through them, my heart hammering. Her alarm got disconnected, one nurse said, confusion and alarm evident in her voice. The central monitoring station lost her signal about 10 minutes ago. I've been doing rounds on this floor, the other added. I saw a woman leave this room around 3:55. I assume she was approved family. Nobody is approved, I said, my voice rising. I had everyone blocked from visiting. They pulled up the visitor log on the computer station. Someone had come in around 3:50 p.m. and told the floor staff she was Emma's aunt, claiming I'd called down and approved a brief visit while I got food. The receptionist, new to the shift and unfamiliar with the detailed restrictions, had allowed it. I explicitly had her banned from this floor, I said, my hands clenching into fists. She's the one who put Emma here in the first place. The nurse's face went pale. I'm so sorry. The note in the system wasn't flagged prominently enough. This is a serious security breach. I ran into the hallway and caught a glimpse of Vanessa near the elevators. She looked back at me with this smirk, this satisfied little smile, before the doors closed. I ran back to Emma's room where Dr. Chen had arrived. She was checking Emma's vitals and examining all the equipment. Emma's heart rate was erratic. The monitor showed she'd flatlined for approximately 43 seconds before the nurses caught it during their manual room checks. This doesn't make sense, Dr. Chen murmured. There's no medical reason for this. Her condition was stable. I told her about Vanessa, about the burns, about everything. Dr. Chen's expression hardened. She called hospital security immediately. Uncle Howard appeared in the doorway. What's all the commotion? Someone tried to kill my daughter, I said, my voice shaking. He looked at Emma, at the doctors working over her, and shrugged. Some kids just aren't meant to make it, I suppose. Something snapped inside me. I lunged at him, but Dr. Chen caught my arm. Let security handle this, she said firmly. Hospital security arrived and escorted Howard out. Dr. Chen reported the incident to both hospital administration and called Detective Harris directly. The detective arrived within 40 minutes. We're going to pull security footage immediately, Detective Harris said grimly. If your sister did what you're describing, she's looking at attempted murder charges. Emma stabilized over the next few hours, but Dr. Chen recommended moving her to a different floor with stricter security protocols. They transferred us to a private room in the pediatric ICU where visitor access required badge authorization and photo ID verification. I sat in the chair beside Emma's new bed, staring at my phone. Those critical 10 minutes when Vanessa had been alone with my daughter, 10 minutes that could have ended Emma's life. 10 minutes that proved my family wasn't just negligent or cruel, but actively murderous. I pulled out Detective Harris's card in my phone. Then I opened my laptop and started documenting everything systematically. Every text message from my family. Every voicemail. I created a timeline of events with precise timestamps. I gathered photos I'd taken of Emma's burns in the ER. I requested copies of the hospital security footage through the patient advocate office. Within 30 minutes of starting my documentation, I made my decision. Legal justice would come, but it would take months, maybe years. I needed something immediate. I needed them to feel the weight of what they'd done right now. But documentation wasn't enough. My family had tried to kill my daughter twice now, once with a cast iron skillet, once by disconnecting her hospital equipment. They felt entitled to do it. Protected. They needed to understand there were consequences. I called Detective Harris first. She answered on the second ring. "Detective, this is Rachel Morrison. We spoke earlier about my daughter." "Yes, how is she doing?" "Stable, thankfully. I need to file formal assault charges against my sister Vanessa for the original incident. I also want to press charges for the hospital incident." "We're already investigating both," she said. "I've requested the hospital security footage. Can you come down to the station tomorrow to give a more detailed statement?" "Absolutely. I have text messages and voicemails from my family as well. Evidence of their attitudes about what happened." Detective Harris sounded pleased. "Bring everything you have." Next, I called a lawyer. Janet Peterson specialized in family law and personal injury. I'd found her through an online search while Emma was sleeping. She agreed to meet me at the hospital the following morning. But legal action takes time. Charges take time. Trials take time. Within the hour, I needed something more immediate. I thought about my family sitting in that cafeteria, eating sandwiches, unbothered. I thought about Uncle Howard's words. About my mother prioritizing mood over her granddaughter's life. About my father's comment on ruined mornings. They operated on the assumption that family loyalty meant protection from consequences. They believed their actions existed in a bubble where normal rules didn't apply. I was going to pop that bubble. But first, I needed to understand the full scope of what I was dealing with. I started going through old family photos on my phone, old text message threads, old emails. Patterns emerged that I'd been too close to see before. 3 Christmases ago, Vanessa had accidentally broken Emma's favorite doll after Emma had played with one of Lily's toys. My mother had scolded me for letting Emma cry about it, saying I was raising her to be too sensitive. 2 summers back, during a family barbecue, Vanessa had shoved Emma into the pool when Emma had gotten too close to where Lily was playing. Emma had been 3, couldn't swim yet, and I'd had to jump in fully clothed to pull her out. Vanessa had laughed and said Emma needed to learn not to bother older kids. My father had agreed, saying Emma was clingy. Last Thanksgiving, Vanessa had served Emma a plate with food Emma was allergic to, something I'd mentioned multiple times in the family chat. When Emma's face started swelling and I'd had to use her EpiPen, Vanessa had claimed she forgot about the allergy. My mother had accused me of being overprotective and suggested I was making up food allergies for attention. Every incident had been dismissed. Minimized. Turned around to make me the problem for reacting. I tried to maintain family relationships because that's what you're supposed to do. You're supposed to forgive. You're supposed to believe people can change. You're supposed to give family the benefit of the doubt. But sitting there in that hospital room, watching Emma's small chest rise and fall under the bandages, I understood something crucial. The benefit of the doubt isn't a renewable resource. Eventually, the pattern becomes undeniable. Eventually, protecting your child means walking away from people who refuse to protect her. My phone buzzed. A text from my brother Marcus from a number I hadn't blocked. "You're tearing this family apart over an accident. Mom and Dad are devastated. Vanessa's kids are asking why Aunt Rachel hates them. Think about what you're doing." I stared at the message for a long moment. Then I typed back, "Vanessa threw a hot pan at a 4-year-old's face. She disconnected life support equipment. Those aren't accidents. The only thing I'm thinking about is keeping my daughter alive." He responded immediately, "You always overreact. Remember when you threw that fit about the pool thing? Emma was fine. Kids are resilient. Emma almost drowned because your sister pushed her. She was 3 years old. She needed to learn to be more careful." I blocked his new number too. A nurse came in to check Emma's vitals around 6 o'clock. Her name was Patricia, the same one who'd helped me with intake forms that first day. She'd been especially kind, bringing me coffee and crackers when she noticed I wasn't eating. "How are you holding up?" she asked gently while adjusting Emma's 4. "I'm managing," I said, which was a lie. I was operating on fury and adrenaline, running on maybe 4 hours of sleep in 3 days. Patricia glanced at the door, then lowered her voice. I saw what happened with the visitor log earlier. I wanted you to know, I reported it up the chain. What that woman did, coming in here and tampering with equipment, that's not just against hospital policy. That's criminal. We take patient safety seriously. Thank you, I said, my throat tight. I appreciate you saying something. I have a daughter, Patricia said simply. If anyone did to her what was done to yours, I'd burn the world down. You do what you need to do. After she left, I thought about her words. Burn the world down. Maybe that's exactly what I needed to do. I pulled up my laptop again and started researching. Michigan's mandatory reporting laws. Parental liability statutes. Civil litigation precedents for assault cases involving minors. Criminal charges for failing to render aid. Hospital negligence protocols. The more I read, the angrier I became. My parents weren't just morally culpable, they were legally obligated to help Emma or at minimum call 911. Instead, they told me she was disturbing the mood. That's not just cruel, it's criminal neglect. I found a legal database and searched for similar cases. There was a precedent in Michigan where grandparents had been successfully prosecuted for child endangerment after failing to seek medical care for an injured grandchild. The case had resulted in both jail time and a permanent ban from contact with minors. I bookmarked everything. Saved PDFs. Built a folder on my laptop labeled evidence with subfolders for medical records, witness statements, legal precedents, and family communications. Around 8 p.m., my phone rang from an unknown local number. I almost didn't answer, but something made me pick up. Mrs. Morrison? This is Amanda Cruz. I'm a reporter with the Detroit Free Press. I came across your Facebook post about what happened to your daughter. I was wondering if you'd be willing to discuss it for an article I'm writing about family violence and institutional failures. My first instinct was to say no. I didn't want to be a news story. But then I thought about Vanessa's smirk in the elevator. About my uncle's casual dismissal of Emma's life. About how many times my family had gotten away with things because nobody outside the family knew. What kind of article? I asked. I cover child welfare issues. I'm particularly interested in cases where multiple adults fail to protect a child, where there's a systemic breakdown. Your situation seems to fit that pattern. I'd like to tell your daughter's story, if you're comfortable with it. Would you use our names? That's up to you. I can use pseudonyms if you prefer. But I'll be honest, stories with real names and real details tend to have more impact. They make it harder for people to dismiss as hypothetical or exaggerated. I looked at Emma, still sleeping under the influence of pain medication. Her face was swathed in bandages. She'd done nothing wrong except sit in the wrong chair, and it had nearly killed her. Use our real names, I said. Use everything? People need to know this happened. We talked for 45 minutes. I walked Amanda through the timeline, sent her the photos I'd taken, gave her the hospital's media contact for verification. She asked smart questions about my family's history, about previous incidents, about why I'd stayed in contact despite the red flags. That's the thing people don't understand about family abuse, Amanda said. Everyone asks why you didn't cut them off sooner. But when it's your parents, your siblings, people you've known your whole life, you keep hoping they'll change. You keep believing it can't really be as bad as it seems. Exactly, I said, relieved someone understood. And they're good at making you doubt yourself. My mother would say I was too sensitive. My father would say I was overdramatic. After a while, you start wondering if maybe they're right. But you know they're not right. Your daughter is in the ICU. Yeah, I said quietly. I know now. I opened Facebook first. My mother had 483 friends. My father had 392. Vanessa had 618. Marcus had 441. Uncle Howard had 357. Many were mutual connections, extended family, church members, neighbors, colleagues. I created a post. I included photos of Emma in the hospital, careful to show the burns but not her face directly to protect her privacy. I wrote out exactly what happened, step by step, without embellishment or emotion. Just facts and timestamps. On Saturday, November 18th, at approximately 7:45 a.m., my 4-year-old daughter Emma accidentally sat in the wrong chair at breakfast during our family gathering. My sister Vanessa Patterson responded by throwing a hot cast iron skillet at her face, causing second and third-degree burns covering 12% of her body. When I tried to confront her, my mother told me to stop shouting because Emma was disturbing everyone's mood. My father said some children just ruin peaceful mornings. On Tuesday, November 21st, while Emma was hospitalized and recovering, Vanessa gained unauthorized access to her hospital room and disconnected her monitoring equipment. Emma's heart stopped for 43 seconds before nurses discovered the tampering. My uncle Howard Patterson, upon learning of this second attempt on my daughter's life, stated some kids just aren't meant to make it. I am posting this to inform everyone of who these people truly are. Police are investigating both incidents. I will be pursuing all available criminal and civil remedies. I tagged every family member who'd been present. I posted it publicly. Then I sent screenshots to my parents' church, including the pastor and several prominent members. I sent the information to Uncle Howard's employer. He was a financial advisor at a large firm in Phoenix. I sent it to Vanessa's workplace. She managed a boutique in Columbus. I contacted Marcus's wife Jennifer separately. She'd been quieter during the hospital visit, standing behind my brother. I'd seen something in her eyes that looked like horror. Jennifer, this is Rachel. I need you to know exactly what happened and what your husband defended. I sent her the full timeline with evidence. Within 30 minutes, she called me back crying. Rachel, I had no idea. Marcus told me Emma had gotten hurt in an accident, that you were being overdramatic. I didn't know Vanessa deliberately, I can't even say it. I'm so sorry. Are you still with him? I'm packing my bags right now. I'm going to my sister's in Toledo. I can't be married to someone who would defend this. Jennifer became my first ally. She sent me additional text messages from the family group chat I'd been excluded from. Messages where they discussed handling me. Messages where Vanessa called Emma a brat who needed to learn boundaries. Messages where my mother suggested they should all just deny everything and claim Emma had grabbed the skillet herself. I forwarded everything to Detective Harris. The Facebook post went nuclear within 3 hours. Over 200 shares. Comments flooded in, disgust, horror, calls to report them all to Child Protective Services. Several people recognized my parents from church and said they'd be alerting the congregation leadership. My mother called from a number I hadn't blocked. I answered. Rachel, what have you done? Her voice was shrill. People are calling us monsters. The pastor requested we not attend services this Sunday. Your father's golf buddies are asking questions. Good, I said calmly. You are monsters. You enabled someone to severely burn my daughter and then tried to cover up a murder attempt. Nobody tried to murder anyone. You're being hysterical. Mom, there's video footage of Vanessa disconnecting the monitors. There are text messages where you all discussed lying to police. I have recordings of the voicemails you left me. Everything is documented. Silence on the other end. You destroyed this family, she finally said. No. You did. I'm just making sure everyone knows about it. She hung up. Uncle Howard's employer called me 2 days later. A compliance officer named David Brennan explained that several clients had contacted the firm expressing concerns about Howard's character. They were launching an internal investigation and had placed him on administrative leave. Your uncle works with retirees and families, David explained. Trust is paramount in this field. If these allegations are true, he's violated every ethical standard we have. They're true. I have police reports and hospital records. Howard was fired within the week. Vanessa lost her job at the boutique after the owner received dozens of messages from the Facebook post. The boutique depended heavily on local clientele and online reputation. They couldn't afford to be associated with someone who'd assaulted a child. Detective Harris called on Friday with an update. We've reviewed all the evidence, including the security footage from the hospital. We're charging Vanessa Patterson with aggravated assault for the skillet incident and attempted murder for the hospital incident. The DA believes we have a strong case for both. What about the others? They were accessories. It's complicated with the family members who were present for the first incident. We're looking at potential child endangerment charges for failing to render aid or contact authorities. Your uncle's statement at the hospital could potentially qualify as conspiracy or accessory after the fact, but that's harder to prove. The DA's office is reviewing all options. It wasn't perfect, but it was something. Vanessa was arrested on Monday, November 27th. Her bail was set at $750,000 given the severity of the charges and the fact that she'd already attempted to harm the victim once while in the hospital. My parents tried to help her raise it, but word had spread throughout their community. Nobody wanted to be associated with them. Vanessa sat in county jail for 5 weeks before finally making bail through a bondsman who charged her an exorbitant premium. The Detroit Free Press article came out 2 days after her arrest. Amanda Cruz had written a devastating piece titled When Family Becomes the Enemy, a Michigan mother's fight for justice after her daughter's assault. The article included everything: photos of Emma's burns, transcripts of my mother's voicemails, screenshots of the family group chat, and expert commentary from child psychologists about familial abuse patterns. The article went viral. Within 24 hours, it had been shared over 50,000 times. National news outlets picked it up. Good Morning America reached out requesting an interview. Dr. Phil's producers called. The Ellen DeGeneres show wanted us to appear. I declined most of them. Emma was still recovering, still processing trauma. The last thing she needed was to be paraded on national television. But I did agree to one interview with a local news station, primarily because they promised to keep Emma's face hidden and focus on the legal and systemic issues rather than sensationalism. The interview aired on a Thursday evening. I sat across from the anchor, a woman named Denise Patterson who'd been covering local news for 20 years. She asked thoughtful questions about how the system had failed Emma, about what changes needed to happen to protect other children in similar situations. "What do you want people to take away from your daughter's story?" Denise asked near the end. "I want people to understand that family isn't sacred just because of blood," I said, looking directly into the camera. "If your family member hurts a child, your child, any child, you have a moral and legal obligation to protect that child. Loyalty to an abuser isn't love. It's complicity." The segment ended with information about how to report child abuse and resources for families dealing with domestic violence. My phone exploded after the broadcast. Hundreds of messages from strangers sharing their own stories of family abuse, of relatives who got away with hurting children because nobody wanted to break up the family. Some were supportive. Some accused me of being vindictive. One message from a woman named Susan particularly struck me. "My brother did something similar to my son 12 years ago. I chose family peace over pressing charges. My son hasn't spoken to me in 8 years and I don't blame him. You're doing the right thing." The publicity had unintended consequences. Someone recognized my parents at a grocery store and confronted them in the produce section. According to witnesses, a young mother with 2 kids approached my father and said, "You're the grandfather who let that baby get burned. You should be ashamed." Other shoppers joined in. My parents left their cart and hurried out. Good. They deserved to feel uncomfortable. They deserved to be recognized and judged. My father's employer, he worked part-time as a consultant for a construction firm, quietly let him go. The company's HR director called to inform me they'd received numerous complaints from employees who didn't feel comfortable working alongside him. "We have a zero-tolerance policy for child endangerment," she explained. "Even if the charges are pending, the court of public opinion has spoken." My mother lost her book club, her bridge group, and her place in the local garden society. Membership committees voted to remove her, citing conduct incompatible with our values. She tried to fight it, threatened to sue for discrimination, but her lawyer advised against it. Any lawsuit would just bring more attention to what she'd done. The social consequences were working exactly as I'd hoped. These people had built their entire identities on being upstanding community members. They cared deeply about appearances, about reputation, about what the neighbors thought. Destroying that mattered to them more than any legal penalty ever could. But I wasn't satisfied yet. Criminal charges were pending, yes, but I wanted more. I wanted them to understand viscerally what they'd done. I wanted them to feel a fraction of the fear and helplessness Emma had felt. My parents were charged with child endangerment and failure to report child abuse. They faced misdemeanor charges rather than felonies, but it was enough to destroy their standing in the community. Their church officially asked them to find another congregation. Dad lost his position on the local planning commission. Mom was removed from her volunteer role at the elementary school. Marcus faced public humiliation but no charges. Jennifer filed for divorce and got it fast-tracked through the courts. She testified to his awareness and approval of the cover-up attempt. He lost most of their assets in the settlement. Uncle Howard faced no criminal charges, but losing his career at 65 was devastating enough. At that age, he'd be starting over in an industry that runs on reputation. His reputation was obliterated. Emma stayed in the hospital for 3 weeks total. She underwent her first skin graft procedure during week 2, with doctors planning additional reconstructive surgeries over the coming years as she grew. The scarring on her face and neck will be permanent, though plastic surgeons say they can minimize it with continued treatment. The physical recovery was hard, but the emotional impact was worse. Emma developed severe anxiety around mealtimes. She'd panic if she sat in the wrong spot or thought she'd done something wrong. We started therapy immediately, both individual sessions for her and family therapy for us. She still has nightmares about that morning. She'll wake up screaming, and I'll hold her while she sobs about the hot pan and her face hurting. She asks me why Aunt Vanessa hurt her, why Grandma and Grandpa didn't help, why anyone would do that to a little girl. I don't have good answers. How do you explain to a 4-year-old that some people are cruel? That even family can be monstrous? That the adults who should have protected her chose themselves instead? Vanessa's trial is scheduled for September, about 10 months after the incident. The prosecutor is confident we'll get a conviction on both charges. With Emma's injuries documented, the video evidence of the hospital tampering, and the text messages showing premeditation and cover-up, the case is solid. Vanessa's lawyer has tried to negotiate a plea deal, but the DA's office has refused anything less than significant prison time. They want this to go to trial. My parents' case will be heard in July. Their lawyer is arguing that they didn't understand the severity of the situation, that they're elderly and confused, that they shouldn't be held responsible for their daughter's actions. It's pathetic watching them play victims after what they did. The civil suits are still pending. Janet Peterson filed against Vanessa, my parents, and Uncle Howard for damages covering Emma's medical bills, future surgeries, therapy costs, and pain and suffering. The total claim is $3.2 million. We'll probably never collect most of it, but I want the judgment on record. I wanted to follow them forever. Janet was brilliant in her strategy. She didn't just file a straightforward personal injury suit. She filed separate claims for emotional distress, loss of familial relationships, intentional infliction of emotional harm, and civil conspiracy. Each claim required my family members to hire separate attorneys because their interests conflicted. Vanessa's lawyer wanted to blame my parents for not supervising properly. My parents' lawyer wanted to blame Vanessa for acting independently. Uncle Howard's lawyer wanted to distance him from everyone. This is what we call scorched earth litigation, Janet explained during one of our strategy sessions. We're not just seeking damages. We're making them fight each other. We're ensuring they can never present a united front again. Every deposition, every discovery request, every motion, it's designed to expose their dysfunction and force them to betray each other to save themselves. During Vanessa's deposition, her lawyer tried to argue she'd been under extreme stress, that Lily had special dietary needs, that she'd reacted out of protective maternal instinct when she saw Emma at Lily's place setting. Janet destroyed that argument in minutes. Mrs. Patterson, is it your testimony that throwing a scalding hot cast iron skillet at a 4-year-old child's face is a reasonable protective response? I didn't mean to hit her face. I was just trying to scare her away from the table. So you admit you intentionally threw a hot skillet at a small child? I just wanted her to move. Did you consider using words? Perhaps saying, Emma, that's Lily's seat? Vanessa had no good answer. The deposition transcript was damning. Janet sent copies to the prosecutor handling the criminal case, who added it to their evidence file. My parents' deposition was even worse. Under oath, they couldn't maintain their denials. My mother admitted she'd seen Emma unconscious on the floor and had chosen not to call 911 because she didn't want to overreact. My father admitted he'd known Vanessa had thrown the skillet but had assumed Emma wasn't badly hurt because she wasn't screaming. Mr. Patterson, your granddaughter was unconscious, Janet said coldly. She had visible burns on her face. At what point does a child's injury become severe enough to warrant calling emergency services? I don't know, he mumbled. I thought Rachel was handling it. By handling it, you mean you allowed your daughter to carry an unconscious, severely burned child to her car alone while you finished your coffee? He didn't answer. The most surprising development came from my father's side of the family. His sister, Aunt Caroline, reached out 3 weeks after everything happened. She'd seen the Facebook post through a mutual connection. Rachel, I'm so deeply sorry, she said over the phone. I had no idea you were dealing with that. Your father and I haven't spoken in years because of similar issues. He's always believed family loyalty means covering for each other's worst behavior. She connected me with other relatives I'd lost touch with, cousins, second cousins, family friends who'd distanced themselves from my parents over the years. A pattern emerged. My parents had a history of protecting Vanessa from consequences, of minimizing her aggressive behavior, of prioritizing appearances over reality. One cousin, Michelle, told me about a Thanksgiving 15 years ago where Vanessa had pushed her down the stairs during an argument. Michelle had been pregnant at the time. She'd miscarried 3 days later. My parents had convinced everyone it was an accident, that Michelle was clumsy, that making accusations would tear the family apart. Vanessa had never faced consequences for that either. Learning this history made me feel simultaneously validated and enraged. How many people had my sister hurt? How many times had my parents enabled her? How many victims were told to be quiet for the sake of family harmony? Emma is still 4 years old. It's been 6 months since that November morning, and her 5th birthday is coming up next month in June. We've been planning a small celebration with just a few close friends, people who've supported us through this nightmare. She's started pre-K with an IAP that accounts for her anxiety and medical needs. We enrolled her in a small private program that specializes in children with trauma histories. The other kids ask about her scars sometimes. She's learned to say I got hurt, but I'm okay now, which her therapist taught her. She's still sweet, still gentle, still makes up songs about butterflies and clouds. But she's also more cautious now. She asks permission before sitting down anywhere. She flinches if someone moves too quickly near her. She watches people carefully, looking for signs they might hurt her. I hate what they stole from her. That easy innocence, that assumption of safety, that trust in family. She's almost 5 years old and already knows people can be cruel for no reason. But I also see her resilience. She's braver than most adults I know. She's learning to advocate for herself in therapy. She tells me when she's scared or sad. She's building a life despite what happened to her. As for my family, I haven't spoken to any of them since that hospital stay. They're all blocked on every platform. I moved us to a new apartment with better security. I changed our phone numbers. I informed Emma's school that under no circumstances should my parents, sister, brother, or uncle be allowed anywhere near her. Jennifer is the only one I maintain contact with. She sends cards on Emma's birthday and Christmas. She testified at the preliminary hearings, providing crucial evidence about the family's cover-up attempts. She's rebuilding her life too, working as a paralegal in Toledo and dating a man who actually has a conscience. People sometimes ask if I regret how I handled it. If I think I went too far by making everything public, by pursuing every possible consequence, by salting the earth of my family's reputation. I don't regret a single thing. They tried to kill my daughter. Twice. They showed no remorse. They blamed her for ruining their morning, for disturbing their mood, for not being meant to make it. They protected their own comfort over a 4-year-old's life. Those 20 minutes after Uncle Howard made his statement, I spent them methodically dismantling every protection they built around themselves. I exposed them to their community, their employers, their friends, their church. I made sure everyone knew exactly who they were. Did it bring Emma's innocence back? No. Did it heal her scars? No. But it ensured they couldn't do this to another child. It showed Emma that I would move heaven and earth to protect her. It demonstrated that actions have consequences, even within families, even when people try to hide behind blood relations. Emma asks me sometimes why we don't see Grandma and Grandpa anymore. I tell her that some people hurt others and then don't feel sorry about it. I tell her that we only keep people in our lives who are kind and safe. I tell her that family is about love and protection, not just sharing DNA. She seems to understand, as much as a 4-year-old can. Last week, she drew a picture in school of our family. It was her, me, and Aunt Jennifer. No one else. When her teacher asked about grandparents, Emma said, "We don't have those. Just us." The teacher called me concerned. I explained the situation in vague terms: family estrangement, safety concerns, ongoing legal matters. The teacher was understanding and noted it in Emma's file. Looking at that drawing, seeing Emma's vision of family as just the people who actually love and protect her, I felt oddly proud. She already understands something many adults never learn, that you can't keep toxic people in your life just because you share blood. Vanessa's trial starts in 3 months. I'll be there every day with Emma's medical records, photos, timeline, and testimony. I'll watch them play the security footage of her disconnecting those monitors. I'll hear the prosecutors lay out exactly what she did and why. I'll watch her face whatever consequences the justice system deems appropriate. And I'll know that I did everything possible to protect my daughter and prevent this from happening to anyone else. Some people think revenge is ugly. Maybe it is. But sometimes it's also necessary. Sometimes it's justice. Sometimes it's the only way to prove that hurting children isn't acceptable, that family doesn't mean immunity, that mothers will burn down the whole world to protect their babies. In those crucial minutes after Uncle Howard made his statement, after Vanessa had tried to murder my daughter in her hospital bed, I spent them methodically dismantling every protection they built around themselves. I exposed them to their community, their employers, their friends, their church. I made sure everyone knew exactly who they were. And I'd do it again in a heartbeat.